Our nation faces a graduation challenge that if we don't meet, will simply leave it unprepared to prosper in the 21st century. The good news is that I come to this issue as both a researcher, a school reformer, and a practitioner. And from all those experiences and knowledges, I believe this is not only a challenge we can meet, it's a challenge we can meet. And we have to do three things. We have to create pathways to college and career readiness for all our students. We have to close the achievement gap. But the hard truth is even if we did all that hard work and succeeded exceptionally well, we would still have a dropout crisis until we confront the cold, hard fact that the dropout crisis is driven by the dropout factories Chairman Miller and others have mentioned. These are the 2,000 high schools and their feeder middle schools that reliably produce half the nation's dropouts every year and 2/3 of its minority dropouts. They're in every state and 77% of congressional districts. But within these locations, they are concentrated in our most neediest communities. They are in the automotive cities of the Midwest, the textile towns of the South, the challenged neighborhoods of our largest cities, and in the boom and bust areas that are being hit hardest by the foreclosure crisis right now. As such, they are simply the engines of the underclass and a collective drag on our national competitiveness. The other piece of good news is this is a problem we can do something about. 2,000 high schools and their middle schools is a manageable number. It's within the bounds of human agency. This breaks down to only 10 to 70 schools in most states and only 1 to 3 in most congressional districts. That's a number we can wrap ourselves around. That's a manageable number. The second thing is in the past decade, we've made great progress developing tools and models and proof points of success. So no one can no longer say this is unsolvable. It's too bad, it's horrible, but we can't do anything. That simply has been proven wrong. Most excitingly, recently, we've developed early warning and on-track indicator systems, which not only can we target the schools, but the kids within the schools. The minute they first get in trouble and fall off the graduation path, we can mobilize around them. And finally, in the past 5 years or so, this has gone from being a school issue to a community campaign. And that's essential that the community be deeply invested in improving these schools and improving their graduation rate because they bear its cost. And until the community is mobilized, we won't have the ability for the long haul. That is happening now. The final missing piece of this is the federal role. We need to create a federal, state, local community partnership, and with the federal government playing a critical, active, and in some places leading role. And they need to focus on 4 things. Accountability. Grad rates need to be co-equal with test scores in our accountability system. Simply put, everyone's got to graduate prepared to do something, college and career, and they got to graduate. One of those is not good, doesn't work. You have to do both. Second of all, we have to realize that high schools are unique. If you need to raise the graduation rate, the 9th grade is when kids fall off track. It's going to take you 4 years to have really big impacts. You'll have incremental improvements, but unless you have that 4 years to show big gains, you're not going to show big gains because you got to fix the 9th grade, and that takes 4 years to pay off. Finally, the Department of Ed regulations are a good place to start, and then Representative Scott's Every Student Counts helps codify that and move that forward. So we already have some building blocks on how to get that accountability right. Second, resources. These high schools and their feeder middle schools have the highest concentration of neediest students in America. They have the most neediest students and the highest number of them. Yet only half of these high schools get Title I money. How can we then say we're using federal money to equalize the impacts of poverty? And secondly, we have to realize because of the crazy quilt of funding in our system of state and local, that simply some schools are going to need more federal resources than others to transform. If we want a pragmatic goal to fix them as soon as possible, we're going to have to realize that some schools will need more resources than others to get the job done quickly. Capacity building. We have to both invest in getting the schools the resources they need, but invest in the folks that can help them, give them the know-how and the technical assistance, the districts, the state departments of education, the external school reform organizations. All these groups that have shown promise need to be strengthened so we can move from pockets of success to systematic improvement. And finally, we need to do smart targeting and integrated efforts. We need to realize that one of the things that's held us back is we've had good ideas and applied them in the wrong places. Because we haven't been thoughtful about what are the specific challenges of this school. What are its resources? What are its capacities? What are its needs? What are its opportunities? What are its tools? When we put that together, what is the reform that makes sense? Not this reform works here, this reform works there. So we have to be smarter about how we choose our reforms. The other piece of good news is that we have lots of good legislation formed by this committee, from the Graduation Promise Act to Success in the Middle to Every Student Counts to the Secondary Improvement Fund. So we have really good building blocks. And in closing, I want to leave you with this image. Sitting here in this beautiful room on this beautiful day, we basically know which students are going to drop out in the next 5 years. We know which schools they go to, and with just a little bit of digging, we can see them raising their hands and saying, help. And we know how to do something about it. So that creates an obligation to act. And my argument is by creating a federal, state, local community effort, altogether we will have the ability to meet that obligation.